How do you feel?
Good. I'm done for this chapter of mine exploration.
What do you feel about today's exploration?
Successful in retrieving the glove. Kind of disappointment that it didn't connect. But all in all, I'm happy that we
know.
We know that, yeah, that's what I'm happy about, that we know where it goes. That's all I care about.
Yep. Let's pack it up and, as they say...
What did they say?
Out of here.
JT got called?
Yeah.
And after all that, we come back above ground.
Night time.
Well, just back from the expedition. Haven't taken off the harness or the Jumars or anything yet, but the Guyan Tunnel does not connect to the Union Mine in Cerro Gordo. I can say that definitively now. It probably did in the past, but collapse, 150 years, doesn't anymore. That's not the last of the Union Mine. It's not the last of that.
After the collapse of the Third Reich and the subsequent capture of many of its leaders, a great mystery arose regarding the fate of their personal belongings. The Nuremberg trial.
Begin with breaking news, heartbreaking news.
Tonight, an urgent plea for help.
Everything is really getting more expensive.
Prices are up, but not at Metro. We've lowered prices. One line of unlimited 5G is now $40, period. And a free Samsung 5G phone, only at Metro.
3, 2, 1, go!
First person to land all 6 bottle flips wins challenge 1. This video is sponsored by GoGo.
Begin with breaking news, heartbreaking news.
Tonight, an urgent plea for help to find a missing couple.
They went missing in the...
Find out from the family exactly which way they came, but basically, it just keeps going and going and going, and their GPS just did it real dirty.
Long. You get to this right here. What the hell do you do? I mean, is this the end of the road? Does the road continue to go? Ron, the owner and the driver, probably, look, this is what you're gonna have to do. He was basically gonna have to make this hairpin turn. Wasn't gonna work. So, as you can see, it looks like it ripped the trailer hitch out of the back of the RV. For the car dolly. Car dolly looks like it's still gonna probably work, possibly. Just gotta get up on this hump. Should pull up pretty easy. We got the one flat tire replaced, which is nice, which means we have 5 spares for to drive out, which we're probably gonna need, because it's rough out of here. Man, I feel so bad for these people. Oh. There's stuff just scattered everywhere. I mean, they're like literally just trying to survive, I guess. The way they were
On a wild adventure. So this, Torque made for him. We're gonna stick it right there by that tree where his Kia was stuck, and so forever be known as Ron Spot. Just didn't even ask questions. I mean, Barb was literally making us meatball sandwiches out of the back of her Jeep, which was
amazing. So amazing crew there. On my side, super grateful for all my guys that, you know, the regular crew got together, and also for Mike Patey, Let Us Take His Plane, and the couple guys that came with him. Another shout out I want to give is to Jeff Mills for sending me the email, making me aware of the situation. He and his wife actually drove up and met us in Tonopah, so they came up and helped us, brought their truck, and were a huge help. And they had no connection to the family. They didn't know who they were. They just saw the story in the news, and
David Custody play somewhere else. David Custody play somewhere else.
One more question. Anybody watch Twitch streamers in here?
Hey!
So I'm gonna my boy Jason, right? He just made a song on stream called Summer Uptown.
Hey, another crew! Come on in.
Y'all know it.
Yeah.
You got promise you gonna sing Jason part, you know? You got it? Let's do it.
What the hey, hey, send it to Oh, they know my part, David. You don't gotta say that, man. I can't hear the crowd, bro. Are they not seeing it? Nah. It's gotta be the audio.
While camping in the dense jungle. Told me something remarkable. I was the first foreigner to ever step foot in this specific part of Nagaland. Don't put it the first, that is, since a World War II plane crashed here in the 1940s. And when I asked who I belonged to, the crash site had never been officially reported and documented, and had never seen it from passed down through generations of villagers.
If it lets me do them. Fuck.
SummerSlam 2025 is officially off the air, and with 2 nights of dramatic action.
Imagine a house so long abandoned that the tickets for the White Star Line and 1910 are still tucked away in the dusty drawer. A place frozen in time, untouched by modernity. No electricity, no soup.
YouTube, I have an interview idea.
Thanks for tuning into Darkness. I'm Chris, and welcome to my LEGO collection. With over 9,585 sets, plus over 19,000 minifigs and counting, this is one of the largest LEGO collections in the world.
It's the world's first.
Why do we keep going back to Canada? Why can't we?
Where's the hot guys?
You know,
disturbing scenes of his finding on his At 11:20 a.m., 2 and suddenly, gunshots from down. One man lays blood.
Giant ginger tree hippies don't always choose peace, but in 2014, one shocked scientist when she not only orchestrated the life canceling of another, she essentially hired a hippie to shoot it. The hairy honey trap was executed by a young female named Condor, and the victim was a mother 20 years older named Sidoni, living in the swamp forest of Indonesia's Sulawesi Reserve, and beef going back all the way to 2009. With
guy who told me about the location of the dump.
Some will do whatever it takes to craft the best barbecue. Why?
Guy who had told me about the location of the dump said that he had found whiskey bottles here previously and that they had sold for tens of thousands of dollars. And who knew there could be cases of them in the old dump. Yes! Yes!
Cerro Gorge, an abandoned mining town. That was a producer of silver for the state of California. For the past 100 years or so, and this week, treasure. Not treasure back in the mine as we normally do. Treasures in an old dump.
Earlier this year, when the American Hotel burned down, it also unfortunately burned down the ice house. And I remember one of the first days after the hotel and ice house burned down, somebody that was very familiar with the property was trying to cheer me up. They were trying to give me some good news. And they let me know about the location of the dump and said, hey Brent, you know, the things in there otherwise would never have been found. And it helped a little bit, you know, some type of bright point in an otherwise very dark situation. And so over the last few months, I've been looking up the dump.
Built 1871. When opened, it didn't have refrigeration. After a number of years, they opened an ice house, which used to stand right there. But they built that ice house on top of what was the original dump for the hotel. So for the first 2 years, everything from the hotel was dumped over there for over 100 years.
Come the fuck on!
Nobody's been able to get
God damn, you dumb fucking bitch.
standing. And now that it is burned, I'm gonna dig underneath the ice house, break up the concrete pad, dig there, and see what was in the original dump. Yesterday, I took a shovel and I dug a very little amount. I dug that much. Not even a foot underneath the pad. And that's what came up. Old plates, bones. And again, that was after 1 foot of digging. So look at this pad. This pad is 30 feet by 15 feet, maybe. So I'm gonna dig underneath this.
This shit's pissing me the fuck
Capture
off.
some treasures that would have otherwise never been found. Not even 5 minutes in, as you can see, there's a bunch of bone, a bunch of porcelain, some bottles. You know, this one's the bottom of one. Looks like a cork stopper. Up there. I just gotta find it. And so for the first step for me was just breaking up these two concrete pads. And I wanted to be really delicate about it. I didn't want to disturb anything underneath. So I took a sledgehammer to it. And so over the course of a couple weeks, I was just sledgehammering into this old concrete that I've been told that concrete gets harder as it gets older. And I believe that because it was definitely a workout. You know, I didn't hit the gym then because I was just for hours each day hammering the sledgehammer into the old concrete. Day one finds a bunch of bones, porcelain, some glasses. Now I'm just breaking up this concrete to get underneath more. This pad is huge, you know? It goes all the way over there. I feel like there should be some stuff in here. Just cracking the surface and finding this already. I hope this thing stays many days to come. A little more delicate with it, and then put it in a loader, and then dump it over there. But once we get all this concrete out of here, I'll have free reign to look for riches and treasure. So I want to get this stuff out of here. The main thing I was looking for was whiskey bottles, because the guy who had told me about the location of the dump said that he had found whiskey bottles here previously, and that they had sold tens of thousands of dollars. And who knew there could be cases of them in the whenever I'm looking for these things, whether it's jeans, which obviously I'm obsessed with, or anything I find in the mines, the intention is never to sell them. It's never to, put them on sale and make some money from it. And I think the only reason I say the value of them is because that's an interest point for people. It kind of pegs how rare these things are. And so for me, finding these bottles became a quest, much like the jeans, where if I could find them, I could display them, and future generations could learn from them here at Cerro Gordo. Because for me, every item, everything that I find, every rock, every scrap, even there's this bone laying by my foot. This bone tells a story. And if I can understand the story of this bone, it usually leads into a segue into a larger story about the history of Cerro Gordo. Cerro Gordo has been very well maintained, but the reality is lots of stuff has been lost from Cerro Gordo. There was an owner in the 50s and 60s that basically sold off a lot of the town to try to pay his bills. He sold off the kitchen flooring of the hotel to pay some bills. Anything they wanted from the town in buckets. And so Cerro Gordo artifacts are becoming more and rarer as we go on. So the idea, the thought, the possibility of finding new artifacts for Cerro Gordo to keep here, to add to the collection, is always really exciting. So I mean,
whoa!
Check out these videos.
God damn!
Broadcasting this history of this place that I think is really important. And so my thought was, I could find some bottles.
I swear, if I get disqualified out of this one and they don't pay me, I'm not pushing this ad. I'm not promoting this
That's
ad.
obviously an entry point into the history of the American Hotel.
Sometimes there's logos on them, and it's cool, because then you can kind of try to figure out where they're from.
Oh my god, is it a full one? Ho ho! Lee and Parents, Worcestershire sauce bottle.
Holy shit.
You look at it as Powell.
Like, fuck is you talking about?
About 8. There's a bunch more in that bucket over there. But collections adding to it. Keep going, hopefully find some more things. Oh yeah, this is cool. Stop what's going in. Alright, little break from the digging. Playing with the cats. It's crazy how fast they grow. You know, it's like they were kittens and I was feeding them in my hand just, a month ago, and now they're like full-grown Allison cats. Aren't you? I'm getting vaccinated. We had a really kind volunteer that came and offered to vaccinate them, and so 4 of them are in LA right now getting vaccinated. She's gonna bring them back and bring these guys there. She's gonna take 7 at once, I guess. She had other cats or something. Hey, Gordo. But I think we have some of the names. This is Gordo. Gordo's the little gray guy. He's the smallest, the run of the group, probably the most needy. This is Lola, named after Lola Travis, of course. And then I have Mr. Rice and Beans is the tentative name. We'll see. Oh, what do you think, guys? Which one's your favorite? This one? John? This one? Also, thank you to whatever viewer bought this scratch post for me. It's gonna definitely save all my furniture in this house. And it showed up, and I appreciate that. Gordo loves it, and the cats love it. Oh, hello, Redfish Hall Games here. What do you guys think? Smells like history, huh? Another fun fact about bottles is if you see something like this, there's a wine bottle, you know, push up at the bottom. And the reason is it allowed the sediment to fall to the bottom of the bottles. And so there's your tidbit of the day. What do you think, guys? This bottle? Gordo? No. Okay. This bottle? Yes. Lola? But yeah,
Yeah, it's nice. The cats have been a great addition. You know, growing up, I've always been a dog guy. Had dogs all my life, so cats are a new thing for me. But I get it. I get you, cat people. I see why you like them, and I can't wait to see them grow up and become much of the bottles become part of Cerro Gordo's history.
Alright, so after the hand digging, these are the full bottles I'm left with. I brought them back to my cabinet to research them a little bit more. I'm still gonna do some more digging with the machine now that I've gotten through kind of the softer dirt that has a lot of stuff in it. Maybe we'll find a couple more things, maybe not, but we'll see. So as you can see, the hotel site's changed a little bit since I started digging for the bottles. This is a little hotel update then too. We're gonna build a basement, a full basement, so I'm taking down the dirt quite a bit over where the pad is.
After I dug through the first 2 feet of the dirt, it got to the point where I wasn't finding very much stuff. So I thought maybe that's as far as the treasures would go. And so to expedite things, to not hold up the digging of the American Hotel anymore, I started using a loader. So I take buckets and I created this screening thing that was made out of fence and some old pieces of piano that actually.
I wish I can go
This is obviously a function of
and move out there with bro.
with what you got. And so this is the sifter I've created, where basically I take a half bucket or so, dump it in, sift through, and as you can see, I've done maybe 10, 12 buckets of this so far. Haven't found anything, and so that leads me to believe that most of the dump stuff was in the first 2-3 feet of the dirt. And this is more just a precautionary thing, making sure I didn't miss anything. Pretty much all I'm finding is big rocks, as you can see. And so I'll sift through some more today, show you guys how I was doing that. And maybe I'll find something, maybe not. And then all this dirt has to get pushed over because where you can see over there, the basement needs to get dug.
He lives in LA.
This is a lot of the miscellaneous stuff that I found. Some of the broken pieces of glass and pottery. I found a lot of bottlenecks. And so what I'm going to do now is just sort through them all here in the museum. Because doing it in my cabin will make it pretty messy, but it's cool. All right, this is the final take. Got the stoppers. These are super cool. Most of them are Liam Perrins, so for the whoosh, whatever sauce. A bunch of those. Some bottlenecks.
Some of them even have the Saprosynum, which I think is really cool. Broken glass. Some with some even label on it still. China, ceramics, and the full bottles. The stars of the show. The cream of the crop. Museum quality items. So I think obviously those will go in the museum. These we might make like a mosaic out of, you know, allow some artists to come and do their interpretation. So I think it'd be really cool to keep them in some way, you know, as kind of a so that's the plan. There's tons more bones, but to be honest, I don't need any more bones in here, so those are slow work. But exciting times, more to come. I'm excited about finding more stuff now, you know, to kind of get that itch to find some more stuff. So that's what's coming next.
All right, there's a little bit of the dump left, maybe, but this might be it. We ended up with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 11 or 12 full bottles, which isn't bad. And now what I want to do is just go in here and do a little bit of research, try to learn a little bit about them. And yeah, all of these bottles, I'll put in the museum at the new hotel. They're bottles that learn of them otherwise. And so they're part of the history of Cerro Gordo. You know, who knows when the last time the guy took some Worcestershire. I don't know how to pronounce that. If you guys know how to pronounce the Leon.
Worcestershire.
And not just old stuff, you know, stuff that was from this property that has a connection to this property. And I think that's why these bottles are so awesome for me, because they're from here and there's a story to them. You know, I'm going to create space somewhere in this with a little plaque about the fire, and about the dump, and how these bottles were consumed in the American hotel at Cerro Gordo, and what that means. And so that's what keeps me going, you know. It's easy to think, hey, why did you spend months finding bottles that you can buy on eBay for $50? But you can't buy these bottles on eBay for $50.
You know Cheez-It made extra toasty?
Of course. Want it? Need it? Cheesy.
My allergic itch was a growing problem for me and my human. We tried antihistamines and anti-itch shampoos, but it kept coming back. Then the vet gave me Apoquel. I'm like,
Woo! We found something cool. Over the past month, I've just come to learn that there is so much more history here than any of the history books I've ever touched on.
We think the water will be right here.
I purchased a rock blaster to get any potential collapse out of my way. Owens Lake is coming back. This might be the longest single piece of steel that's ever been brought up this road. Never stepped in the same wash twice. Something is going on in that area directly next to the writer's cabin.
We've located the burial sites of 6 people.
All right, welcome to Cerro Gordo. It has been 3 years and 3 months that I have been calling this former mining town home. There is no way that I could have known back in March of 2020 when I tried to get up to town in my tiny 2-wheel drive Tacoma that I would end up walking into the adventure of a lifetime. And it takes months like this past month or so to remind me that there is no telling what's ahead of me here at Cerro Gordo. And there's really no telling all the stories there are to find from the past too. I mean, this town used to have 4,000 residents in it. There used to be the largest silver mine in California up here. You know, that's thousands of stories to tell. You know, we've had historians over the past month or so that have just blown my mind with the people and events that have happened here that have never been told before. You know, we've had a project that I've been working on for 3 years finally seem to get in the stride with the hotel. And all of that just has made me realize once again, this place is magic. There's so much more to tell here. There's so much more to do here. There's so much more life to be had here. And it's all left me very excited. So with that, let's get into whatever's been going on the last month or so up here at Cerro Gordo. I'm going to jump into the 5-ton truck, and I'm going to head down to Keeler, get the wood, bring it back up here, and we're going to start framing out these walls. All right, so we're all loaded up. We got 16-foot 2x6s, 16-foot 2x4s. I look like a crazy person with these goggles on, but we are headed back up the hill. Framer should be up there. We just gotta get this wood up there so we can start framing in the walls. Let's go!
All right, so we're finally ready to start framing. The boys are rolling up all our stuff right now. Manual labor until we start working with that here. And we're just gonna start staining the walls. Frame the walls and stain them.
These days, I feel like it's in really good hands. Colin's moving up here, framing up the walls, sheeting the walls, even putting in these beams that I'll talk about in a minute, and it finally starts to look like a building. After Kyle got up these walls of the first floor, then came a very interesting part of it. Then came the transportation of 5 26-foot-long steel I-beams with crazy tie-ins attached to them. This is something that our engineer, based in LA, came up with. I think it's due to snow load or just trying to create a Cerro Gordo bomb shelter. I don't know, but there was 5 26-foot-long steel I-beams that weighed about 2,000 pounds apiece that made their way to Keeler.
Alright, today's battle is getting these 26-foot-long beams that are going to support the second floor all the way up to Cerro Gordo. The problem is our bed of our 5-ton is only about 14 feet.
So you gotta think we would have 12 feet of overhang, and each foot of the steel weighs a couple hundred pounds, which led us to lead to all sorts of brainstorming. Maybe we were gonna put them over the cab, over the driver's head, which seemed like a certain way to decapitate people. Well, as usual, the 5-ton is not working, and so we are going to attempt to put these beams on this vehicle mover, and they're going to be hanging out the back, or we'll get some pallets in the back to give us some clearance, and then hope that my truck can maybe pull this thing up there. Never a dull moment. This is where we're going to end up, trying to take things up, and we're going to be able to go. All of these beams again, get up there. This is what we got. Surprisingly, the transportation of the beams went a lot smoother than I could have imagined. I just remember the whole time up thinking, this might be the longest single piece of steel that ever been brought up this road.
We're just gonna attempt to send these steel beams up there and hope for the best. Play it by ear.
After getting the first 2 up here, we lowered them on the crane, put them in place, and that was a very exciting day. I really need to get this place closed by the winter to continue doing the work on the electrical and the plumbing and all that type of stuff. I think we're in a good place. You know, it's so exciting for me to be able to watch from the Gordon house above it and see one corner of this that was just a platform before suddenly turn into a corner of a building. It's just finally feeling like this project's in full stride, and that it's in good hands, and it's very exciting for everybody involved. You know, it truly took an army to get here. But I just can't wait for everybody, whether that's you just watching or anybody that's brought up materials or hammered in a nail, to come sit on this deck out here and say, hey, I played a part in building that hotel. Right now, I'm sitting at the cemetery here at Cerro Gordo. In the 1800s, Cerro Gordo was a boomtown fueled by booze and greed. The newspapers back then reported a murder a week, but still nobody knows exactly how many miners are buried in this hill behind me. That's because back then, the headstones were made out of wood, and these headstones have been lost to age, they've been lost to weather, they've been lost to theft. I've heard estimates anywhere from 50 to 500 miners are buried in this cemetery. And it's always been a missing puzzle piece in the history. And tomorrow, we might figure it out. That's because tomorrow, my friend Paul is bringing up his human remains detection dog, Bosco, and we're going to try to determine exactly how many people are in the cemetery and exactly where the borders are.
My name's Paul Dusty. I retired from the Mammoth Lakes Police Department as a detective sergeant in 2009.
Paul is just an expert when it comes to human remains dogs. You know, his last dog, Buster, before Bosco, Buster was just a star. He lost one of his legs to cancer. So it was a three-legged dog that found literally hundreds of human remains, including some very high-profile soldiers and murder cases back in the day. And unfortunately, Buster passed away. Bosco is Paul's new dog, and Bosco is just a star in his own right.
We have a pet cemetery. It's out in brush, but you know there's hundreds of pets, dogs, cats, and so I'll take one small tube of human shit in the grave, and then I'll hide it, and he has to go over all those graves, and goes over like they weren't even there. He's only looking for what he's been trained for: human decomposition and human blood. That's all he knows.
Obviously, the longer they've been in the ground, the more they decay. So you have to imagine the majority of the miners that are up in the cemetery here have been decaying for 150 years. Dogs can detect the human remains that are decomposing like 1 part per trillions that Paul was describing to me.
I trained him like a bomb dog. He finds the target odor, and then he just lays down and waits for his toy. So you have to be very animated when you're working with these guys. Yeah. Because they're really happy creatures, right? But they want to play. And so this, you know, human decomposition to them is like, if I find something like that, I'm getting a toy. As far as the cemetery goes, we'll just get up there and see what we can get. And, you know, I mean, you could probably run the dog here. It might work because it's draining down. All the way down. It's draining all down. Sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
You know, our main target today was 3. First was to go to the cemetery. Next, I wanted to go back into Newtown, potentially see if there was a separate cemetery for some of the Chinese miners here. And third, we just kind of wanted to look around and see what else was out there. And so the idea that we could individually sort the grave sites didn't quite happen today. You know, there's so many people up there that kind of just the whole hillside was triggering for Bosco, meaning that there's, over the years, they're decomposing, the rain's coming, they're washing down the slope, it's kind of just spreading out the human remains all throughout that hillside.
And so we'll try to make 4 or 5 runs going straight down, maybe, you know, part and then we'll know where the boundary, at least the top boundary is of the cemetery.
From there, we kind of just decided that our main goal of the cemetery was going to be defining kind of the outer borders of it. You know, when Bosco stopped signaling, meaning there was a dead area, we know that was kind of the borderline of it. And I think that in the future, there's more technology like ground penetrating radar that we can do to get exact locations of graves in a mass grave like that. But we were able to kind of loosely define the perimeter of what the cemetery would be.
Okay, so it's draining down this thing too. Right. So I'm kind of thinking that there's something up there in those trees. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, one more time, or what?
Just above the 1870 head marker, it seems about 10 feet above that, the cemetery pretty much stops, or at least the pits for Bosco are stopping, so we can assume that above that, not too many people are buried. You know, to the left, if you're looking at the cemetery, there is a pinyon tree that seemingly marks kind of the left border, and to the right, they trenched in a power line, you know, not too long ago, and it seems like that's kind of the right border of the cemetery area.
Well, this is what we call the decompositional plume. Okay. Okay, that's what we call this. Yeah. Which is decompositional event, and it's rolling downhill. You know, when it rains, it pushes it down here, and then that's why he was poked right there. Yeah. It was somewhere in here. Right.
As we walked up the road further, Bosco triggered on this wash. And this wash was probably about 50 yards of void in between the other cemetery. And so that would mean potentially a few things. You know, 1, above there might be another burial site. Or 2, originally Paul thought that it was potentially a second graveyard. You know, back in the day with these mining camps, a lot of times they wouldn't want the less proper citizens of that town to be buried with everybody else. So prostitutes, gamblers, thieves, sometimes different ethnicities would have to be buried outside of the main cemetery. So Paul potentially thought that maybe there was 2 cemeteries right next to each other, or just outside the main cemetery gate, they would bury everybody else. You know, after we explore the cemetery, the main cemetery here, I have a few other places I'd like to go with Paul. First, I'd like to go to Newtown. And Newtown is just on the backside of the property over the saddle. And Newtown is also known as Chinatown. And from my understanding, back in the 1800s, in similar mining camps, the Chinese workers wouldn't have the same burial grounds as the rest of the miners. Which leads me to believe that if that was the case, there could potentially be a second cemetery on the backside of Cerro Gordo. This is not reported in any of the history books. It's not been reported to me by any of the people that worked here or any of the journals or other research that I've done. But if that theory is true, that again would just add to the history here that was never known before. And so Bosco, Paul, and I just walked around for a while, searching out, seeing if anything triggered, and there was 3 places. And the first of which is very interesting. The first place that Bosco triggered was immediately next to what I call the writer's cabin. So next to this cabin on the backside, the final standing wooden cabin, which is next to a mine, directly next to the building, Bosco triggered almost immediately on a very strong scent of human remains. And when we were there, Paul did something really interesting that I thought was just very illuminating on how sensitive these dogs are. Bosco wasn't signaling anywhere else around this cabin, but in that one area, Paul got a rock, really put it in the dirt. That's where the human remains would be. That's what they're picking up on. Took that rock with the dirt elsewhere when Bosco was looking somewhere else, and had Bosco go and try to signal once again. And immediately, when they got to the rock, signaled.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a good training aid. If you have a place where there's someone's deceased or something.
Right.
And he's been there for decades. The rocks are going to be boom for the dog really easily.
Right.
Let's see if we can. Okay, let's go all the way up. I'll take you up there. See if we get up there. Yeah, because it springs down, it's going to pull right here, right
yeah.
to the leg.
Right.
Something is going on in that area directly next to the writer's cabin, which is interesting to me. That was a mine at one point. There was maybe somebody living there at one point. Maybe that's a check-in thing. And I wonder if potentially, if accidents happened inside the mine, if back there they wouldn't even go through the effort of bringing them to the other side of the mine, they would just bury them near the entrance. And something that we found a little bit later on would point to that as well. But as we were wandering around, the second place that we came to, there was a flat spot next to the road. And when Paul looked at it, he said, that just doesn't look like it should be flat in the way that it was. And so we went over there with Bosco, and on the course of potentially a 30-foot flat spot, I signaled 3 times to indicate that there's 3 separate burials all along where there's now a road. As you guys may have known, on the backside of the property, there's a famous mine called the Lower Newtown Mine. And right by the mine itself, no triggers, nothing. Bosco wasn't going crazy. But kind of off to the side of the mine, down in a flat area, next to 2 very conspicuous pinyon pines, Bosco triggered directly in between those 2 pines. And so an idea that I come to after finding 2 burial sites next to the 2 mines on the backside is on the backside, maybe in its heyday when the people were to die inside of those mines in a mining accident, whether it was like a fall, a dynamite, a collapse, or this and that, they would just bury them pretty much on the closest flat spot that they had. After that 6th find, 3 in the one place, 2 by the Upper Newtown Mine, 1 by the Lower Newtown Mine, we decided to call it. It's getting quite warm out. Bosco doesn't need to be outside for that long.
We have 3 locations, and it's an area believed to be where Chinese workers worked. There's 3 at one site.
See, charcoal. See? See if I can find that rock. Yeah, if you dig down, more charcoal. We're doing something around here.
Well. We did not find any grave, at least that I know of. We did find this tailings pile. Holy cow. Woo! Whoa. Holy sh**.
That is so sick. Oh man. I do not have my climbing gear with me. Whoa! It's still going. This is insane.
Woo! We found something cool. History just keeps continuing here at Cerro Gordo. It just keeps getting better.
And I cannot wait to go down that hole tomorrow. Alright, we got to the bottom of that first chute, and it's very narrow here because all of the debris over time, the rock, everything else has fallen in and made it not much taller than my head. A lot of rock here. I hope that these levels go a long ways in both directions. Let's check it out. Well, it looks like, at least for this bottom part, this might be the end of the line. I wonder back in the day if that other side went further. But there's the one level above us. But getting to that level is going to be tough. We're going to have to kind of do some acrobatic swinging to get over to that level. We're going to go back up the rope ways, see where that leads to. Keep checking. Either way, crazy. Alright, with the assist of that wood, we made it up to this first level. Doesn't appear to go too far back. We're going to find out. Shout out that wood. Getting off of here is going to be pretty interesting. You gotta remember, this is probably not a huge operation. This is probably done with hand steel, meaning like, you know, you hit a rod, twist it, hit a rod, twist it, and you're maybe making, I don't know, a couple inches of progress a day. So this tower we're looking at, let's say it's 40 feet long, might represent like a year. And I always wonder like that mentality of a miner, when to kind of call it a day. And I wonder if like they've heard of other guys striking it big and thinking just, hey, if I just go 2 more feet, maybe I hit that vein, you know? And again, this whole adventure started with trying to find a graveyard, and we found another mine, which I didn't even know existed, and now I can know what was here, and try to theorize maybe what was here, what the motivations were, and I love it, you know, no matter what, these always feel like a win to me. Yep. Not the one. I did, yeah. Yeah. There was something. That was a very fun exploration for me. I always love going into old mines. They're probably my favorite thing to do. You know, I just hate how everything is so programmed hour by hour, and just like to get onto a rope and go into an old mine and literally not know how deep that goes or where it goes to is just amazing. So probably the biggest and most exciting thing over the past month has been history, and more specifically, the history yet to be told. Over the past month, I've just come to learn that there is so much more history here than any of the history books I've ever touched on, and it's just lit me up. You know, in addition to Paul and Bosco who came up, a guy named Robert Sloan also came up this month. And Robert is a cybersecurity analyst. He has a background in computer engineering, and for the past few years, Robert has just been making databases of every mention of a person, every mention of a building, every mention of everything related to Cerro Gordo. And we'd sit over in the Gordon, and Robert would show us his presentations of what he's discovered over the past few years. You know, and as we saw this information, we learned more. It's just like every corner of Cerro Gordo beckons you to come out and learn more. You know, now that piece of dirt that I've walked past 100 times that I've forgotten about, it's wells, prospectus that showed where these wells were. Steven, who's a town manager up here, has a background in geology. And so kind of together, we just poured over these maps, and almost every night and during the day, Robert and I took dozens of trips out, trying to slowly zero in and triangulate on where this water was.
Britt and I have been down here in the Wash on the way from the upper town of Cerro Gordo to the lower town of Cerro Gordo looking for water at a place known as the Beaudry Well. We came across this lovely flat spot in the Wash. There's plenty of green grass, which is uncommon for the area. And we're going to concentrate our efforts here to see if we can find some subterranean proof of fill, maybe a 100-foot well shaft.
The grass, and I was just saying to Robert, I hike around a lot and I don't really see grass like that. And again, I know it's been a record snow year, but like this pocket here just seems full of this longer grass and vegetation. There's cribbing here.
I don't want to say exactly where we think it is, but I think we're getting very close, and it just gets me stoked on Cerro Gordo and what we can do with that much water. And I just think that it'll just immediately change everything about this place that's so exciting. For me, where discovering stuff always leads me is to the mines. I've read different reports that there's levels below the 900 foot. They try to drive it deeper. I had heard of maybe 1-2 levels. But after discussions with Robert, reviews of different documents, it seems that there's potentially 4 levels below the 900 foot level. And I think this past month, given how much new history we're uncovering, that has led me to get some tools, some things needed for a very serious exploration of the 900 foot level. An exploration with the sole intent of getting down to these lower levels. I've got the rope. I have 950 feet of rope. I purchased a rock blaster to make potential collapse out of my way. But my next exploration of the Union Mine, which will be the next video that's coming out of this channel, is going to be crazy. It is going to be my biggest adventure yet into the Union Mine. I'm going to spend the most time down there. I'm going to have the most tools, the most resources, and more importantly, the most information to know exactly where I need to go, or exactly where I need to clear to get into these levels, and again, just paint an even clearer picture of Cerro Gordo. Stay tuned, that is coming, all together collaboratively. Everybody that's watching this,
life out with all the wildlife. They do a great job of keeping all the mice population down.
So, on the animal front, happy as always. All right, another big thing this month. Good morning. Welcome. Behind me is the road to Cerro Gordo, an abandoned mining town I live in. This road is 8 miles long, made of dirt, and located in a wash. So when we get these big storms, like we did the other day with Hillary, it just completely wipes out the road, causing all sorts of issues. People get stranded in town, progress stops, and a bunch more. So let's check out what this storm did.
Command strips remove cleanly, so you can make your space your own. Command, do no harm.
Hey, it's your skin. I want to feel extra clean, but will it leave me stripped?
I'm craving a cleanse with CeraVe Foaming Cleanser. Developed with dermatologists, cleanses and removes excess oil with niacinamide, known to keep me calm, and 3 essential flavonoids. CeraVe prevents disruption of my natural barrier, so we're refreshingly clean. CeraVe Clean.
CeraVe Foaming Cleanser from the #1 dermatologist recommended skincare brand.
And now, introducing new CeraVe Anti-Dandruff Hair Care.
Hey guys, my name is Brett, and I am headed deep into this mountain range you see behind me in search of a lost mining trail that used to connect some legendary mines back in the 1800s. These mines are long gone, but a few ghost towns remain, and that's where I am headed. This is Pat Keys Mill. This hike is very remote. It's going to be a brutal hike. A lot of the trail has just been lost to rock slides.
In your mountains, keep delivering.
We're going to be staying in cabins left behind from the 1800s. Look at what we have. Camping outside otherwise, and just trying to understand all the history that happened up here.
So cool.
I just can't believe that this is here. I think my hope with this whole hike is just to understand some of these towns that I read about in history books. There's casual mentions of, Keenot Mine, of Bighorn Mine, of Beveridge, of Pat Keys Mine, and all of these mines back in the day were very important in their own way, and they've kind of been lost to history. And one of my favorite things to do on this channel otherwise is to understand this past history and kind of bring it back to life a little bit. And so my hope is by going up into here, seeing them with my own eyes, I can bring them back to life a little bit and help piece together the historic puzzle that is the Inyo Mountain Range and that is just mining in Inyo County.
The trail I'm on is called the Lonesome Miners Trail. It's a collection of prospector routes from the 1800s that meander through some of the most rugged and remote portions of the Inyo Mountains. The trail is about 50 miles long and drops in and out of 5 canyons, resulting in almost 25,000 feet of elevation gain and 25,000 feet of elevation lost throughout the hike. In those 5 canyons, there's 4 different mining towns, all preserved to time. The places varied in size from a couple dozen people to over 100 residents, but they all tell a story that directly connects to Cerro Gordo, the old mining town I live in. This area was infamous for 2 reasons. First, how difficult the terrain is. A researcher in the 60s described the hike as wild, rugged, dry, country, accessible only by foot. Then, as now, a challenge to man's ingenuity and stamina. And back in the 1800s, a newspaper described the trail as so nearly vertical in most places as to be inaccessible to anything without wings. There are reports of dead miners being found along the trail, of winter trips that almost killed the mine owners. But still, the miners kept going back because they
or float, which is basically just ore that's laying right there in the canyon. And if it was galena, silver, lead, it would be heavier than the others. If it was gold, it would be very obvious. So they'd walk up canyon until they didn't find any more. Then they would figure, oh, it must be the left, oh, it must be the right. So that's why a lot of these places, these mining camps, will be found in the canyons themselves. That's the hope, These camps, again, haven't been visited very much in a very long time. And so I don't know the state of them. And so we're going to get a first-hand look at what's still there. There it is, Saline Valley, which is part of Death Valley National Park.
Probably nobody that way for many, many, many miles. We're gonna hug this ridge and start dropping down a little bit. This is just stunning. So now, the next step in this process is to find my stuff. I can't see anybody from over here. I mean, this is here. This is the end of my hike. Yeah, this is the rock. Found it. And I saw a letter thrown in a tree. Boom. There we are, baby. Yes. This is so sick. Yes. And there it is. Right where I left it about 5 or 6 months ago. This is big. I'm a voice crack. I'm so excited. Oh man, this is so heavy. Oh man, I don't just jeez Louise, Brett. Well, we got it. We got it, baby. Yes. The hike can continue. I am stoked. Yes. This is awesome. This is gonna make the whole thing possible right here. So it's time to do an unboxing. I can't remember what I have. I know I have a sleeping bag. What else is in the store? Let's open some food and a water filter. Alright. We have the jet foil, a jacket, a tripod, a sleeping bag and a waterproof bag, and her pillow, and her pad. Yeah, boy. And some ginger fried rice with tea. Dinner is served. I'm curious, you guys in the know, what is the best trail food like this? This one is a Alpine Air. I also have some traditional ones in there too. I'm curious what you guys think is a favorite. This one's pretty good. What's the best? That's what I want to know. Alright, let's talk history and this patch of land that I'm in right now. The reason that I'm starting off my hike over here, the reason that all this is here, a man named Pat Keyes. Pat Keyes was a man that in 1887 established a little mine around here. He established a gold mine, a very productive gold mine. There is a report that in 1895 he produced 113 ounces of gold in a single week, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars if you adjust it for today's inflation. And his mine was just over there, very close. It's mostly collapsed. Or where he processed the ore was down in the canyon where we're going to go tomorrow. But in the 1890s, he was employing about 5 guys here. It was a really big deal, and it kind of put this area on the map even more. You know, Beveridge was humming at that point. Keenop, which was 2 mines we're going to continue going to, were humming. We're going to go down there tomorrow and kind of see what his life was like. You know, we're going to take the same trail that he would have taken from his mine up here all the way down to his processing plant, and hopefully, very hopefully, there is a spring there. He used the spring to process his ore, and so that is where I need to get water. I have about maybe a gallon left, and the hope is to continue hitting some of these springs. That's the big unknown. If I don't have water, I can turn back, but let's figure that out tomorrow. Right now, it's getting kind of late, so I'm going to kind of get ready for bed, journal a little bit, which I always love doing, and get ready to see Pat Keyes' whole operation tomorrow. Cabins. We're over by where his mine is now, and this is where he was spending his days. And you can tell that he cribbed up a lot of the rock. He's bringing materials in here where it's hard. As you saw the hike in with yesterday. And even with it's incredible to think that this is how he would have lived. There's still some remnants of him. There's his canteen, the blasting caps tin. We're gonna go peek into his mine and hike back up. Go down to refine the ore, as well as hopefully find a spring. You see this is the California Cap Company, Triple X. Not a bad view for passengers.
Hello.
These days, you'll come around what remained of his
I'm Lisa.
a bunch of tins, some piping.
Boss.
I wonder when Pat woke up in the morning, what he was dreaming about. And he thought that 130 years later, he might be digging around in his trash.
On the road again, and today it's going to start getting a little interesting. The path is going to be much less defined.
Each day, the path's going to be harder to find, but each day we have a bigger and bigger mining camp, including ones that had hundreds of residents and all sorts of stuff left behind. Right now, I need to
Okay.
go down this valley you see in front of me and ideally find a spring as well as the mill site of Pat Keys. So you can see below me the valley we're headed. You can see along the bottom of the canyon the bright green trees, which must be where the water is. I believe that the water's up that canyon a little bit. And it is steep. And all I keep thinking about when I'm looking at it is when we go down there,
Yeti.
we're gonna climb back up this whole peak and drop back down to the next valley. I'm getting closer to the canyon floor, and I think there's something about human nature where we can just sense water. I don't know the exact word for it, but I can feel it, I can hear it now. My body's just a little more at ease. Something that humans just love about looking at or being around water. Ooh, we got ourselves our first sign of humans. Oil. Oh, Pat Keys is down here somewhere. I see some wood. You see some signs of humans. And look what we have. Oh, old camper, old Pat, down here by the mill. That's awesome.
There's a lot of remnants from the past here, like this.
I don't know what it is, but it's like for some type of mill.
Getting myself down here is one thing. Imagine getting all these
Pickaxes they had to have down here. We got a knife, a ladle. Fireplace. Pan, I don't even know what's in there, I don't want to open it. So peaceful. Old saw. Whoops. My pans. Little trail down to the spring. Look at that. And running water way out here. Little old desert. That is awesome.
Water! I found it. This is key. It's so cool to think that each of these canyons, a mile or two from Death Valley National Park, has these flowing streams in them. It's just like this hidden surprise that you come upon and brightens your mood. This is down kind of near his campsite, I think. I think the mill is further upstream than this, so I got some water just in case. But ideally, I'd like to get some water closer to the spring. We're a little bit downstream right now. So, we're gonna wander up there, try to find these Arastras.
And here we go. This is Pat Keys Mill, otherwise known as an Arastra. Basically, it's a primitive mill
grind and pulverize the rock. So imagine flat rocks on the bottom, a circle like this, throw the ore in, and you basically are just dragging around the circle. You see the circle you established too? You see the perimeter of it? So something would have walked around here. Sometimes it could be a human, sometimes it could be a mule, sometimes it could be steam powered. Turn the rocks in a circle, and that's going to grind up your ore. And this is a method that's been done since a very long time ago. I believe it was in the 16th century that the Spanish introduced the word. The word basically means to drag around the ground. And these were used because you see, you can set them up just using materials around you. You have to call the machinery. It's expensive to set up, and it's something that you could do just using the rocks in the area. And it's really cool. So Pat would have brought down his ore, dumped some in here, grinded it up, and probably had some type of sluice or similar somewhere around here.
It wouldn't have cost that much to get going, you know? A mule, a pickaxe. That was kind of the beginning of that American Western, right? You come out here with a pickaxe, find your claim, you know, figure out a way to make it happen, and live a better life. And I think that Pat Keyes, at least from my understanding financially, was able to do that. Something that's kind of been my staple over the last 4 years, especially when I'm doing hikes like this, is element. It's an electrolyte powder, sodium, potassium, magnesium, that's been in it, no sugar, anything like that. Even when I'm in town, I drink one to avoid any of those kind of dehydration headaches that I used to get for a while. It's great. I'm conscious of how big my pack is. Easy to throw this in there. I try to drink 1 or 2 of them a day, and I just find that I have more energy and I just feel better. So check it out. You go to drinkelement.com/Brent, so drinkelement.com/Brent. They're giving away a free sample pack with any drink mix purchase. So just again, you gotta go to drinkelement.com/Brent. And I was drinking this stuff far before they ever sponsored this channel. And I drink it a lot when I'm ready to do this. And it really is. So check it out. drinkelement.com/Brent. So you feel better, keep me going on adventures like this. Well, we're not quite all the way down into McElroy Canyon yet.
We got ourselves a little mining shack made from the material they had, with some tailings and some cribbing leading up to a mine up there. This, I want to say it's part of a stamp mill. Some type of pulverizer. It's very heavy yet solid. So I wonder if back in the day they had a mill here as well. I've read reports that Pat Keyes would bring his ore over here for refining, and so there's a possibility that there used to be a mill here. I know that there's a great stamp mill over in Beveridge that we're going to see before too long. I wonder if there's one here too to service this mine that has pretty decent tailings. I mean, that's a lot of rock. So you figure maybe there's a pretty good little portal up there that they had going on.
This descent down into McElroy Canyon is just insane. I started up about 8,300 feet in elevation, and the floor where I'm going is 5,300 feet in elevation. So it's 3,000 feet of elevation loss in about a mile, and it's just tiptoeing down with this heavy pack all the way down. So I'm about 7,000 feet now in elevation, so I still have another almost 2,000 feet to go. Bear with me, this has been a couple hours trying to make it down into this canyon. My favorite part of going to these very obscure places is seeing signs of human life, to trying to understand
why those people were here. And most of the time, the answer is mining. And so that's the answer in this canyon primarily. You know, there's McElroy Canyon, and that is why people do it. But these days, this canyon is much better known for a beekeeper, which I think is just amazing. A beekeeper way out here, a few days hike from the closest town. And this all came about because I think in the 1980s, some people started researching the area. They were hiking up from the Saline Valley side, which is a lower descent to get up here, and they found these waterfalls. These were 100-foot, 200-foot waterfalls, a series of waterfalls, and in these waterfalls were these crazily constructed ladders made out of twine and wood that were going right up the waterfall that just looked insanely dangerous. Imagine a 200-foot waterfall with a handmade ladder made out of twine and wood. And so people started thinking, what is going on here? You know, they made it up further in the canyon. They found some huts. And these huts had beekeeping equipment in them. It had the helmets, you know, the nets, the little smokers, the cases. And they're thinking, what in the world? What is somebody doing beekeeping? So this was a big kind of mystery for a long time in this area. And then finally, in the 1990s, they tracked him down. The beekeeper of McElroy Canyon. And his name was Marion Howard, and he grew up out east to an unsatisfying job at Chrysler, I believe. So he said, I'm going west to make my living. Packed up, made his way to Lone Pine, and in the 1960s, he started just coming into this canyon. From Lone Pine, which is about 3,500 feet in elevation, up to the open Pinot Pass, which is 11,000 feet in elevation, and then back down here to 3,500 feet in elevation. So this man and eventually he said, hey, you know what'd be cool? It'd be cool to tend to some bees out there. So that is what I started doing.
Over here we have one of the smokers. That is so cool. Look at that. I wonder if he made that work. Imagine that's how you smoke out the bees. Oh my god. Oh, what are this beekeeper nets to keep the bees out. I think these would have been for the honeycombs. These would have been the trays that are sat inside of the combs to go in and out. There's a wooden carbide there. Pile of clothes. They're probably not so good these days. Yeah, some straw. It looked like this was his bed. You see there's canvas down. He brought in a bunch of straw to act as his bed. And oh man! And there's his canvas duffel sack, like I read about. The clothes are still in the canvas sack. Oh my god, he was a line. There's his sack. It's crazy to think that this is where he lived. You know, this is the view that he would have every day. Oh man, that is so freaking cool. Talk about humanizing history. I've read about this story for so long. And now to be out here and see this place is just so cool. That makes the whole trip worthwhile for me. Wow, there is so much. Look at that cribbit. There's so much here. All the spots like, oh, there's a waterfall. Oh my god. I found Shangri-La out here. I'm gonna have to settle in here for the night because I feel like I got a lot to see around here.
I think this might be one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. I just can't believe that this is here. And I was trudging down that trail earlier and I was regretting it, honestly. I thought, oh man, I'm telling myself to go to just another mining camp. And boom! This lush green, a field of wildflowers, and a waterfall. It's just so unexpected. It's so beautiful, so peaceful here. This idea of planned discovery is something that I talk about a lot in Cerro Gordo, where you want to be led into something and you open it up and it's not what you expected, but it's even better. You know, like at Cerro Gordo, can lead somebody into a cabin and they open it up and wow, I didn't expect this, but it gives the same feeling I got today. And when I got here, I got very emotional. It's the only word to describe it. It's just so beautiful, it's so serene. I'm up to about 6,700 feet in elevation, up from 5,300, so I'm almost 1,400 feet up. It's about half the gain that I have to do today, a little less than half, and I'm gonna keep trekking towards the Keenot Mine Complex, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but it was a huge mine back in the day with some more amazing stories, kind of like our beekeeper that we just left behind. First snake, don't like that. That's terrifying. I just go into the rocks. I don't like this canyon anymore. I'm gonna get out of this canyon to a normal flat hike for a minute. We are just starting to get into the Keenot mining district. You can see we got some stone cabins going on. And back in the 1870s, this was a huge district of about 7 or 8 different claims. They poured about 30,000 ounces of gold out of these hills right around here. And the deepest mine shaft here are about 1,800 feet down. So these are real mines. And the majority of the mining here was either brought back to McElvoy Canyon or up and over this bridge in a Beverage Canyon. This is another huge mine that we get tomorrow. As we get further down, there was a mining operation that tried to get this going again, I believe in the 70s or 80s. So there's some more modern mining equipment that we're going to see. Wow! And look, as we're going down towards that mining equipment, what we have. We got the track, and on the track,
I threw that Rello away.
multiple. That is so cool. And even
Unless I rolled it without noticing.
it's hard to get in there with mules and however you get them in. This is 8 grand on that one. Oh man, look at that one over there, still on the track. Does it move on the track? That would be so freaking. It does! Yeah! Hinnock, Clay, Spears, and Hayes. Kind of rhymes. Now, where is this coming from? I assume a mine. Sheet metal, easy building material. Ooh, looks like our mine might see better days.
My little shit.
So all of this more mining equipment here in the Keenot complex was brought in 1983. It was a company called the Far West Exploration Company. And they helicoptered in this recovery plant. More than 8,000 feet in elevation. So imagine helicoptering all of this in. And they planned on building a road into here and doing all these things. From my understanding, they lasted less than a year and then get out of here. The problem was water. These operations, especially a situation like this, is very water intensive. And so again, look around, we're at 8,000 feet. No good trails to even get here, and always not very profitable to helicopter.
Hello. How'd it go?
Oh, good.
Really? That's good. Oh, I should have threw the lighter away.
I don't know about the trash. My mom was finna take it out.
She, they got her teeth in.
They did?
Yeah, but she's all swollen.
Well, duh.
Kind of like this.
Instead of balance, they're helicoptering everything in. This thing, they got all the way out here. I think what the anticipation was going was